Welcome to the very first episode of That Morning Cup. Cheers. So now you probably ask yourself, what is this? Um, and that's probably for good reason because this is episode number 1. I uploaded a video, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, titled That Morning Cup, and I enjoyed filming it. And I realized in the morning I spend about 15-20 minutes in just silence, and I sip my coffee. And so I decided, let me make a video while doing this and just talking and whatnot. So I did that, and somebody left a nice comment, and it kind of got the ball rolling, got my mind thinking. I'm like, while I sit there and think of whatever I'm thinking, I might as well pick up the camera and film a little bit. So what I'm going to do is now do this once a week. Admittedly, it is not the morning right now. It is 5 o'clock on a Tuesday. PM, not AM. And I'm filming this. But my goal with this and my plan with this is every Friday morning I'm going to upload That Morning Cup. And it's just going to be kind of just a weekly journal for myself. And I'm going to talk about the things that inspire me, that interest me, and whatnot. Now, my goal with this is hopefully maybe to inspire people to educate themselves, pick up new hobbies, or just overall learn, or maybe just sit and it gives them something to listen to on their commute to work or whatnot. So the whole goal is to inspire, educate, talk about my interest, get ideas. I could obviously learn from you as well, people leaving comments in that and checking my ideas and going, hey, TJ, that's dumb, that doesn't make sense, you're wrong, this, that, or the other. People giving their opinions. Maybe I'll meet people along the line, or along the way rather, that I could learn something from. And we can banter back and forth and all educate ourselves. Now, I'm going to talk about things like books, hunting, fitness, that being running or the gym, diet, anything that interests me, science, literature, physics, whatnot, literally anything, art, movies, whatever I think that week and want to talk about while drinking that morning cup, the first cup of the day. Admittedly, it's going to be kind of selfish. It's going to be for my own little gain where I get to sit, and I've found that if I don't find somebody, or if I don't speak out loud even just to myself about the topics that I'm learning about throughout the week, they kind of disappear. My brain does not hold on to them as well. And I can't fully grasp this concept that I'm trying to learn if I'm not trying to articulate it later that day or later that week or whatnot. If I'm constantly just reading and reading and reading and I'm not speaking, I don't retain the information as much. And I do not nearly understand the concepts as much. A perfect example of this was last night. I started The Myth of Sisyphus, and the concept of absurdism really was just like not sticking. I couldn't necessarily grasp it, which admittedly I still can't totally grasp the philosophy. But I talked with it through my girlfriend, and she's read it twice now, I think. She read it beforehand, and I'm pretty sure she almost read all of it at work yesterday. So I read about half of it last night, and I finished it today. But like I was saying, I need to be able to speak to somebody about it, or at least speak to something. I need to get it out of here and work out the ideas verbally, not just take them in mentally and then try to ramble them on in my brain, or even just writing. Writing sometimes doesn't suffice in me grasping the concept of the philosophy or whatnot to the highest extent that I possibly can. So, selfishly, excuse me. Selfishly, this is going to be kind of for me, but I also hope to inspire people. I want to get people's minds thinking, provoke some thoughts, inspire people to educate themselves. I have a buddy, you know who you are if you're watching this, who said that he did not read a single book in 2025. And I do not think he's alone in that at all. I think that is the majority of people did not read a single book in 2025. And I think that is a detriment. I think that's a travesty. And that's something that I think about often, how to inspire people to read more and how to get people excited to learn. And I think that's through seeing people that are your age or that you can relate with doing the thing, right? I think people can relate with me. I from the outside looking in, if you looked at my Instagram when I would post in that, you would think just a young, meat-headed, weightlifting maniac, which I am. I love fitness. I love weightlifting. And I love being a meathead from time to time. But I always kept this side of me, reading and education side of me, to myself. I was almost a little bit embarrassed because I felt like I had a character that I had to fit, and that character was, the big fitness guy that all he cares about is lifting weights. But it's like what I value more than being physically strong is mentally strong. And I really enjoy being mentally sharp, or at least trying to be mentally sharp, the pursuit of it. Because I don't ever want to be taken advantage of because of my lack of education or my lack of understanding. So I spend a lot of time trying to educate myself to the best of my abilities. But, as the old saying goes, I don't know if it's Aristotle that said it. It's one of the philosophers. And I don't remember the quote exactly. But the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything. And there's so much more to learn. So it feels like the quote-unquote smarter I'm getting, or the more educated that I'm getting, the dumber I feel. And that's unfortunate. But that's what keeps you inspired to keep learning. And I think the same thing goes for the gym. Me and my buddy Riley that I work with, we're talking about this. If we woke up one day, looked in the mirror, and we were like, wow, I'm completely happy with the way my body looks. What would be the reason to go into the gym anymore? To maintain it, I guess, but you wouldn't have that same fuel. So you almost use that to your advantage, that you're never satisfied. And I think with the gym, that's apparent. And then with education, you could use it as well. As the more you become educated, the more you're like, wow, I'm an idiot. And that just keeps fueling the desire to learn. So now that we got that cleared up, now we know what this is all about. What I want to talk about today is, speaking of reading, I've read 4 books so far this year. I'm filming this on the 20th. Now, I must preface this whole thing by saying I'm not this mega speed reader and all that. I just have had off work the past week because it's like a blizzard outside. It's cold, and my boss, who I do fencing for in the winter when we're not landscaping in the summer, was on vacation. So I've had a lot of time to read. And I finished a book. Well, I finished 4 books. But Crime and Punishment, I started like the 1st of the year, the 2nd of the year, and I finished that on the 12th. And then since then, I finished 3 other books. But I'll show you the books that I finished. And then we will get into this. This is my to be read for the year. Not all of them, but the list. But let's start with, in order, what I finished reading. So, so the first book, okay, yeah, we'll start with the first book. This book, I think, has become my absolute favorite book of all time. It used to be East of Eden by John Steinbeck. But I'm not going to go into an extensive review of these books because I want to make videos on them, but I will give us a quick review, rather. Now, when I read this book, it was giving me like severe anxiety. It's that gripping of a story. It just like grabs you. Not that you can relate with the character, but you become so entangled with the story that you feel what Raskolnikov, that might give it away to people, what Raskolnikov is feeling, right? So now, it's obviously the book, Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. Wow. Just wow. It's a 450-page book. I read it in, I guess it was like probably 11 days, 10 days. But I really, in like 4 days, put away like 250 pages of it. I was putting big chunks of reading away. And I couldn't put it down, but I would get to a point where like my anxiety was so bad while reading it, weirdly, that I had to put it down. So I wasn't putting it down because I was getting, bored or kind of reading fatigue that you'll get. Um, I was finding that I had to put it down because simply I was spiraling. I kept putting myself in Raskolnikov's shoes and like trying to feel what it would feel like to. So he murdered a pawnbroker and her sister. And he's trying to wrestle with his conscience and trying to justify his actions. And he has this theory on extraordinary men, ordinary men. It's very Nietzsche coded, but obviously this was before Nietzsche. So he says there's extraordinary men and there's ordinary men. Ordinary men, they like to get controlled. They like to follow the rules and such, and they do good in that type of world. And then he said there's extraordinary men where he references Napoleon. Napoleon does all these acts of murder, pillaging, overall just conquering lands. And he says he's an extraordinary man because he can justify it and he could consciously live with it. He could be okay with it. So Raskolnikov sees this pawnbroker and he decides, I'm going to kill her because she's taking advantage of these, poor people, these addicts for capital greed. She's making money off of them because they're obviously pawning things. That's how pawnbrokers work. And he decides, if I do this, I'm an extraordinary man because I'm helping the whole. It's very it's very utilitarian. And he thinks, I'm going to kill her. I'm going to help out the people around me. And I'll be able to live with it consciously because I'm an extraordinary man, and everything will be all gravy. Well, that's not it. And the book's called Crime and Punishment. So there's a crime, and then the crime happens pretty early on in the book, and the majority of the book is just his punishment. Now, it's not just prison punishment, but it's his mental turmoil. He goes through this psychosis. He has these dreams where he's back at the apartment. I'm not going to spoil all of it, but he has a theory that what gives in murderers, what gives it away that they did it, is that they'll fall ill. They'll go into these fevers and they mentally won't be able to handle it. And he finds out that he can't handle it and this is happening to him. And then he, tries to get on a road of redemption. And it's just a really good story. It's anxiety inducing. It's gripping. You cannot put it down, but you have to put it down because mentally I was like, I'm tweaking out. I have to put it down. And then I'd go to read it again and I'm like, whew. I was nervous to pick it up. It was that good because I was like, I don't want to go into this panic attack again in a good way. It's just you get so wrapped up in it that you think you're Raskolnikov and you're like, you get paranoid almost. It induces paranoia to the point where I have this little rock here that has a little divot, shout out my girlfriend, that I would have to rub this little divot because I'm like, oh my God, I'm sweating. So that was book number one. And I think that's my number one book of all time. Not think, I know it is. Now let's move on to the second book I finished this year. This was a one-day read. It's pretty short. It's only 185 pages and it's easy read. Cannery Row by John Steinbeck. I'm a huge John Steinbeck fan. I think the way he sets settings, his description is really great, and he just has a beauty to his writing. It's very colorful. His writing is what I perceive. That's how it makes me feel. And this is just a pretty simple story. It's Cannery Row. It's a real story, and it's based on people that he knows, although he changes names in that, obviously. And the whole gist of the story is that there's these boys. I almost can't even remember the name, but the lead one's like Mac, and they want to throw this party for this doctor that's in the town. It's in California. You take a sip of coffee. So they want to throw this party, and they throw this party for the doctor, And the whole time that they're leading up to trying to get the money, they're broke, right? They've escaped the matrix. And not because they became so rich, but they don't care about materialistic things. It's almost very Thoreau-esque. They don't care about materialistic things. They live a free life because they're not in that rat race. They don't go to work. And the town looks at them either like they're heathens, or there's people like Doc who look at them and go, they're free of the troubles that we have. They talk about stomach ulcers. They say the working man has a stomach ulcer. The mass of the working men have stomach ulcers and all this stress from working and paying bills and that. They don't have any of it. They live free. They rent out this building from the grocery store owner, Lee Chong, I think his name was. Crazy name, but this book was released a long time ago. And they rent it out from him. And he knows, he doesn't want to rent it out because he knows he's not going to get his rent, but he knows there's no way really around it. They're going to go destroy it then if he doesn't rent it out to him. So he looks at it as like, all right, they're going to spiffy it up. Might as well. And I kind of have no choice. So he rents it out to them, and they decide, let's throw Doc a party. And when they do that, the whole time leading up to it, they got to catch frogs and give them to Doc for 5 cents a frog, all this to get the money. And they keep asking themselves, is this really for Doc or is this for us? Do we just want to party? Are we looking for an excuse to party? And to not spoil it, they throw the party. It doesn't really go the way they wanted. And it's just a funny story. There's some pretty comical bits in it. And it's easy read. Now, do I think it was like the greatest book I've ever read? No. And is it the most memorable? No. But I enjoyed it. It got me off my phone, and it took up multiple hours of my day. And if you're looking for just something easy, little to read, I highly suggest Cannery Row. Good story. Nothing too crazy. Now, the next book I read was another amazing book. And this is 1984 by George Orwell. Obviously, this is a classic. It's a must-read. Now that I've read it, I've realized that you hear about this book time and time again. If you want to read classics, if you want to read fiction, you have to read 1984. And it just covers a totalitarian state that is watching every single mood, even down to their facial expressions. And are they even inside their own thoughts? Can they read the public's thoughts? And although it's a fictional story, it gives you a real insight into the dangers of a totalitarian state and just what could come if a population is uneducated and if freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and all that is stripped from the people, and how easily controlled humans can be, right? And how there's people in the world that they don't value money, they don't value prestige, all they value is power. And they don't care if everything around them crumbles as long as they are powerful. There's a lot of lie, there's a lot of deception. There's even a weird little love story in it, which I'm not the biggest fan of Julia, because I feel like Julia doesn't really care about overthrowing the government or freeing the people. She kind of just cares about Kraken, Winston. Winston Smith is the main character. She just kind of wants to have sex with him. And when he tries to talk about this stuff, and I'm not going to spoil it, but he talks to some people and he gets a book and all this, and he talks about what the government's doing, and he's talking about all these travesties, this deception, this control, and he wants to break free. He wants to take the government down and overthrow it, right? In a sense. He can see beyond the lies. He's not brainwashed like some of his neighbors or his colleagues at work. And you think she's like that as well, but then as the story progresses and he's talking about the book that they're reading and he's trying to talk to her, she's just sleeping. And he talks about what his dreams are and how he wants to, or how he doesn't agree rather with what they're doing and such, and the ministry of love and all this. And she can't really go for it. She just kind of wants to have sex with him in this little apartment above a store Mr. Carrington's store, and you get that little insight, or rather that foreshadowing, when he asks her how many times has she done this, and it's sex is a thing, and she says hundreds of times, and then countless times, I think the word is, she says, which sex in the state that they're in is, it's not illegal. Nothing's illegal, right? So there's no like, if you do this, it's illegal. It's whatever the state decides is illegal in that moment. Whatever they don't agree with, you get executed. So they obviously don't make everything, they don't have set in stone laws, because then the laws can be fouled, right? And if they're fouled, then you can't punish these people. So they don't have rules. They just have a standard you're supposed to meet. And if you don't meet that, they can come execute you. And even if you do meet that, lies, I mean, people will lie, and they will accuse you of doing such things, and there's no really fair trial or anything. They're just killing people. They have telescreens, these little TVs on the walls that can watch you, that are constantly playing stuff. It's a crazy story. I read that in 2 or 3 days, maybe 4 days. I don't know. I read it off in like 5 sittings, I think. It was just such a good story. You didn't want to put it down. There was some down times, like when he was reading the book that he got. I'm trying to walk on eggshells here so I don't spoil it, but when he was reading this important book that he got, that was kind of exposing everything that Big Brother, his name is, that's the state. They have the thought police, and then they have the inner party, outer party. But Big Brother's like the dictator, but he's not actually a person. But when he's reading this book about everything that Big Brother's doing, and that the inner party's doing, the outer party, and all the deception, all the lie, like the continuous war, but it's not a war that can be won or lost. It's just a continued war to burn resources, the surplus of resources, so they could continue to make people work to produce these resources. And they say there's a war going on, and we have to ration our foods out. It's to keep people in line is why this war is going on. And it's between 3 different states. And they're all kind of in agreement that, hey, we're not going to win this war or lose this war. Let's just kind of keep this going so we can keep our people controlled. And I don't even know what I was just talking about. I kind of went off on a tangent. Yeah, I don't know. Good story. I highly suggest you read it. I think it is an absolute must read if you're trying to get into the classics, or even if you're not trying to get into the classics. I was a big kind of hater on fiction. I didn't think fiction deserved a spot. I didn't think you could take much from fiction when I was in high school. But now that I'm an adult, and as you can tell, I mean, the only 4 books I've read so far this year have all been fictional. You know, I think there's great lessons to be learned in them, and I think specifically this one tells a lot of turmoil that we need to be careful to avoid. And I think through reading in that, we could avoid it. Now let's get to the last book that I've read so far this year. And this book has been the most challenging book I think I've read in a really, really long time. I don't know really why. Just the writing I couldn't fully understand. It took me a really long time the past 2 days. Like, I'm talking hours and hours. I'm looking up stuff on Google. I'm watching YouTube videos. Everything to try to understand this book. And the book is The Myth of Sisyphus, which his name is not Albert Camus, but I think it's Albert Camus. I know it's Camus, but Albert Camus. I just say Albert Camus, or when me and my girlfriend talk about it, I just say Camus. Now this book, I don't even know where to begin on it. I can't even fully articulate, I think, what I think about it, because I don't fully understand it. I got the gist kind of what absurdism is, and the absurd is the conflict between the man's longing for meaning and trying to find the meaning in the world, and the world's silence. Now, Camus does not believe the world has any inherent meaning to it. It's meaningless. And what the absurd is that conflict. Okay? And that conflict appears when a man, like, say myself, is like, okay, I'm trying to search for meaning in this world. And I'm met with the silence of the world because the world has no meaning. And now, if we remember who Sisyphus is, Sisyphus was the man who, I think he was a Greek god, was doomed to the underworld, and he was in a perpetual state of pushing a stone. I mean, we all know the famous thing. Not Atlas holding the world up, but Sisyphus pushing the stone up the hill or up the mountain, and every time, as soon as it gets to the top, it rolls all the way back down, and he has to walk down, and it's just a meaningless pursuit. And that's supposed to seem like the most dreadful thing in the world. But, as the last sentence in this book goes, we must imagine Sisyphus happy. Let me fact check that. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I just read it today, but I was in a state of delirium. Oh, one must imagine Sisyphus happy. Now, I've been wrestling with this all day. Can we be happy in a meaningless task? And are we happy in a meaningless task? And I don't know that answer, to be honest with you, but Camus says, every day we wake up, you eat your breakfast, you go work 4 hours, you eat your lunch, you work 4 hours, you come home, eat dinner, go to bed. You wake up, you eat your breakfast. It's the same thing. So are we technically Sisyphus already, right? Now I have to push back against that a little bit because no, I don't. Although I think our work life is repetitive, I think when we come home, like me and my girlfriend are chatting about it, Sisyphus was doomed to just pushing that stone up the mountain. That was it. For eternity. Now, my take on it is he never got a chance to leave that mountain, right? So when we go to work, we push the stone up the mountain. When work ends, that stone falls back, but we leave. We get to go have experiences. We get to go hang out with our loved ones if we have them, if we're fortunate enough to have them. We get to go eat. We get to go do what we like to do. If you're fortunate enough, obviously. I mean, some people have to go work another job. So I guess there are people in this world that are, at the end of the day, Sisyphus. But it's like you still get to go home and maybe watch the show you want to watch or whatnot. Sisyphus didn't. So I've been just really battling with this and just trying to understand absurdism. And he talks about pretty grim stuff. He talks about unaliving yourself, and he thinks that's the only really important philosophical question we even have to ask. Like, why don't we just unalive ourselves? The world has no meaning. And now he breaks down why we shouldn't do that. And he says there's two types of. There's the regular one, and there's the philosophical. And he thinks, or he states rather, when you do things like attach your meaning to religion and that's a philosophical. And from my understanding of what absurdism is we need to accept that the world has no meaning, okay? And the way we could continue to live is to revolt against that meaninglessness. Find our own meaning. It's kind of like existentialism, but I don't think he fully believes in existentialism, because existentialism, from my understanding, is like the world has no meaning. Okay, Nietzsche talks about this. The world has no meaning. We know that. Accept that, and now it is your duty to find meaning for yourself and find meaning for your own life. The world doesn't have to give you the meaning. You are responsible for finding your own meaning. Reading this, I got the idea that Camus doesn't even want you to find meaning. You don't need to find meaning. He says, can we live life without appeal? Is that something we could do? So it's a lot. It's a lot. And this is why I'm doing this, because I could see I'm working out my brain and trying to educate people on it. Therefore, I'm educating myself, working it out. We're learning together here. This is exciting. He doesn't believe in tomorrow. He doesn't believe in the future. He doesn't believe in eternity. Camus thinks with absurdism, if you talk about tomorrow, or you talk about eternity, the afterlife, you're forfeiting a little bit of energy on today. And all we have is today. So we need to live in a lucid state and allow us to really enjoy and the experiences we're having in the moment, because that's all we have. We don't have yesterday. We don't have tomorrow. And it's almost like you're not forfeiting, but the absurd does not exist tomorrow. Because if you're speaking about it tomorrow, you're giving meaning to something. You don't have that conflict anymore, because you're not searching for meaning in a meaningless world and revolting against it. You found meaning in something. So it's philosophical. And you need to, I'm kind of having a mix up where I'm intertwining absurdism and existentialism. I get the absurdism. I get that we have a longing for meaning and there is no meaning. So therefore, there's the absurdism. There's the conflict. But accept that conflict, or rather just understand that conflict exists. Be aware of it, and then go find meaning from something within inside is how I would like to live life, right? Which I don't totally... I'm not totally aware, or I haven't come to my full beliefs on it yet, whether I agree with this or not, or how much of it I agree and how much I disagree. I don't totally think that there's an inherent meaning in the world, right? I'm not a super spiritual guy, and I don't get my meaning through things like religion and such. But I do get my meaning through work, that's maybe what Sisyphus is. Because it says, the struggle itself, here, I'll read this right here. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. So is it the struggle that we find the meaning? And that I could agree with. I find my meaning through putting myself through mental struggles every day and testing myself physically and intellectually. That's where I find meaning. Because when I come out on the other side of that, like on the other side of reading this book and trying to grasp it, chewing on it, just to a pulp, trying to understand it, that gives me fulfillment. And now is meaning and fulfillment separate? I don't know. But now let's talk about the to be read real quick. Oh, well, my next book, before we go on to anything, it's not from behind me, but Mark Bittman, Animal, Vegetable, and Junk. I'm excited about this. I'm probably going to start this after I film this, but let's do the to be read here. We're going to kind of rifle through these quickly. So after I read, and this is going to be roughly in order of how I'm going to read it. I might mix some of them up or whatnot, but this is pretty rough of how it's going to be. We have Epictetus, Discourses and Selected Writings. Now, this next book is the one that worries me the most. I'm definitely worried about this because it's going to be a hard read. It's 400 pages. And just the style in which it's written, and Nietzsche is just notoriously a difficult thing to digest. But Thus Spoke Zarathustra by Nietzsche. Then I have a little bit of a smaller book, Letters from a Stoic by Seneca. Then I read a good chunk of this book, but I never completed it, maybe 2 years ago. But The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. Let's keep it moving here. Now, the next four. I know that there's Thinking Fast and Slow, but I'm not sure I'm going to read that after I finish the fourth one of this. I don't know if that's going to be like the next in order. Pathogenesis, A History of the World and Eight Plagues by Jonathan Kennedy. Picked this up at a little bookstore / coffee shop a while back. The Republic by Plato. Another Steinbeck book, The Grapes of Wrath, which is a classic. I read about maybe a quarter of it a while ago and then got wrapped up in work and kind of fell off. So I'm going to restart it and finish it, which I'm excited about. And then The Cave in the Light by Arthur Herman. Now, this is Plato versus Aristotle and the struggle for the soul of the Western civilization. Now, this is a big book. This book also intimidates me, but that is the theme of this year. I'm reading books that intimidate me. I'm trying to challenge myself intellectually as much as I possibly can, and I'm not shying away from books because they're too big, or maybe I won't have an easy time understanding the concepts. This year, I'm trying to challenge myself intellectually more than I ever have, and I urge people to do that as well, because I think that there's great fulfillment in that, and I think we owe it to ourselves as humans to take advantage of this thing that we have upstairs. It's a beautiful thing. Science cannot explain what's upstairs, what's going on in between these ears. And it's a phenomenon that we have to take advantage of. And I think if we don't put it to work, it rots. It just rots right out of your ears. So please, please, please educate yourself and challenge yourself intellectually. Your muscles could be as big as you want them to be. If you can't speak, you can't articulate yourself, and you have nothing interesting to say, what good are you, right? And it ensures that you have the best probability of not getting taken advantage of. It just allows you to be diverse, to be interesting. I don't like somebody that is just one-sided. They have one thing that they're into and nothing else. They don't ever do anything different. They only are really interested in one topic, and that's all they can talk about. They're not multifaceted. They have one facet in life, and that's it. I don't want to be like that. That scares me. I want to be multifaceted. I want people to be able to talk to me about fictional classics like Steinbeck, like Dostoevsky. I want people to be able to talk to me about philosophy, science. I just want to have a little bit of knowledge of everything, and then be able to work on that and dig a little bit deeper and have deeper knowledges on multiple things. I just have an insatiable thirst for knowledge. So hopefully that inspires somebody to pick up a book. And please do not go an entire year without reading a single book. And you know who you are if you made it this far, mister. Please read at least one book. And I know you said that you have this book. You have 1984. Just crack into it, dude. It's super easy to read. It'll be fast. Please. Shout out you. Yeah. And then here's some other books that I want to read again this year. Being a Human, Existentialist Guide, and then E = MC squared. That's going to be it for the very first episode of That Morning Cup. I just rambled so much I didn't even have time to really sip this. But I hope everybody enjoys their weekend. Big UFC fight this weekend. I'll probably be watching with the boys. And yeah, hopefully next time I check in with you guys, I should have Animal, Vegetable, and Junk done. And Epictetus done. Already episode 1, we have technical difficulties. My big camera overheated, so this is being filmed on my little DJI camera. That's my apologies. I can't believe it overheated, but we're done with the video anyways. Yeah, thank you for tuning in. I will see you guys next Friday for episode 2 of That Morning Cup. I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace.